Hello and welcome. You're watching UATV News with me, Ksenia Bugay. First this hour, the latest developments. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy had a coronavirus vaccine shot during a visit to the contact line in Donbas. The head of state got the Covishield vaccine from the Indian Serum Institute production company. The president noted that he got the jab on the front line at the Supreme Commander, along with military and with the same vaccine to inspire everyone to do the same. Besides, Volodymyr Zelenskyy hopes to reassure skeptics that the vaccine is safe and effective.
Everything's great, nothing hurts. I recommend everyone to do this. If anyone's afraid, they may come here to Severodonetsk. The jab is necessary. Even though I had COVID, I was ill with COVID, and I strongly suggest everyone to get vaccinated. I got my jab together with our military. I think it's right.
Volodymyr Zelenskyy was visiting Donbas along with President of the European Council Charles Michel. The latter pays a two-day working visit to Ukraine. They have inspected the Joint Forces Operation Zone as well as attended one of the checkpoints and discussed a number of security issues. Charles Michel assured that Ukraine can count on the EU support in the issues of security and state policy. Restarting the High Qualification Commission of Judges of Ukraine, testing the professional suitability of judges and limiting the powers of the District Administrative Court of Kyiv, judicial reform will be a priority for high-rank officials this year. This was stated at the Ukraine 30 Development of Justice Forum by President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Our correspondents will tell you more about the reforming of Ukrainian judiciary.
Ukrainian Themis lacks judges. There are more than 2,000 relevant vacancies in Ukraine. Those judges who are already working cannot cope with the amount of tasks. Some cases may take several years to be considered. The judicial reform should resolve this problem. The lack of new judges causes the excessive burden on the system and creates problems with access to justice. Due to the absence of almost a third of judges needed, citizens are forced to wait for months and sometimes even years for their case to be considered. In this context, it is important to restore the work of the High Qualification Commission of Judges. In order to appoint members of the Qualification Commission of Judges, it is necessary to hold a competition. The Parliament is considering a bill that should make the selection of candidates more transparent. The process will be launched after the law is approved. The Supreme Qualification Commission should not only find new judges, but also check the professional suitability of those who are already making decisions. Yet, we have to complete the qualification assessment of the working judges, and there are more than 1,500 of them now. According to the results of such a qualification assessment, some of the colleagues should leave the profession. It is also an element of self-improvement. The judicial reform also provides for a reduction in the powers of the Kyiv District Administrative Court. They want to deprive it of the opportunity to cancel the normative legal acts of the central authorities. The corresponding bill is already in line for parliamentary consideration. This is Bill number 5067. It concerns the transfer of the most important categories of cases from the District Administrative Court of the city of Kyiv. It goes about cases that involve a person and the highest state bodies, central executive bodies, as well as those bodies setting tariffs and prices. The transfer of such cases to the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court of Ukraine is said to make it impossible to manipulate the decisions of the authorities, which were previously appealed to the District Administrative Court of Kyiv. Also, a presidential bill has been registered in the parliament, which should regulate the work of disciplinary inspectors. Those will follow the work of the judges. If, at the request of the inspector, the judge refuses to provide information, he or she then may be brought to administrative responsibility. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Artem Holub, UATV News.
One more region is in the red quarantine zone. The Ministry of Health of Ukraine has revised and updated the epidemic zoning in the country. Besides, they stress in the ministry that process of vaccination is going to speed up. Our journalists will tell in detail.
5,336 Ukrainians got infected with COVID-19 over the past day. About 1,410 patients were hospitalized with complications, 162 died. On March the 1st, the Ministry of Health has updated the list of quarantine zones in the country. Ivano-Frankivsk, Zhytomyr and Chernivtsi regions are in the red zone. Vinnytsia, Donetsk, Transcarpathia, Zaporizhzhia, Kyiv, Luhansk, Mykolaiv, Rivne and Ternopil regions are in the orange zone. The remaining regions and the capital are in the yellow quarantine zone. On holidays and weekends, the number of infected Ukrainians should not increase. Vaccination should be carried out according to the plan. This was stated by President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. He demands to continue negotiations with manufacturers and speed up the delivery of vaccines. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health promises to intensify the process of immunization of Ukrainians. According to the plans of the Ministry of Health, vaccination takes place in a cascade method. I want to emphasize that vaccination against COVID-19 will allow all Ukrainians, citizens of Ukraine, to return to a normal, long-awaited, quiet life without masks. At the moment, more than 3,000 Ukrainians have already received vaccinations against coronavirus. Among them is the Minister of Health, who got the Indian Covishield vaccine. He did it publicly to prove that the drug is safe and effective. The procedure was broadcast live on the department's Facebook page, after he shared his feelings with reporters. I think I feel better than before the vaccination. Doctors ask Ukrainians not to avoid jabs. To develop herd immunity, at least 60% of the population should be vaccinated. Refusal is a risk that one exposes not only him or herself, but also their friends and relatives.
We need to realize and understand the danger, be able to assess it. I'm not talking about society and so on. Just protect yourself and your family, because if you're infected, you can also put your relatives at risk.
Meanwhile, by March the 6th, the Minister of Health is expecting to receive another batch of the vaccine, the CoronaVac, from China. It was procured at the state budget expense. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Valery Bakus, UATV News.
More than 44,000 Ukrainians have applied for vaccination against COVID-19. The opportunity to sign up for the immunization queue appeared the day before. The most active Ukrainians are registering online through the DIA Public Services application. Meanwhile, the Minister of Health of Ukraine spoke about the changes in the vaccination roadmap. The leftover vaccines were allowed to be administered to celebrities, opinion leaders, and prominent figures of culture and sports.
The fact is that the vaccine is supplied to the country in multi-dose vials for 10 vaccinations. And after opening the bottle, its contents should be used within 6 hours. Therefore, to use the vaccines rationally, I decided that the circle of people who are allowed to vaccinate was significantly expanded. I think everyone understands that not all hospitals, especially at the first stage, have the number of employees in line for a jab divisible by 10. The figures could vary.
Ukrainian President's initiative on tax amnesty will be considered in the parliament as early as the following plenary week. Volodymyr Zelenskyy submitted the draft for consideration on February 25th. He offers Ukrainians to legalize the income they previously hid when paying a special fee from 2.5% to 9% of the value of previously undeclared assets. A person is freed from liability for tax evasion. The amnesty should contribute to the unshadowing of capital, as a quarter of Ukrainian economy is in the shadow now.
The tax amnesty is voluntary. One has to stop manipulating. Nobody forces anyone to show their assets if one doesn't want to. All is voluntary. Next, a person can reveal his or her incomes to the state and pay the general rate of 5% of those assets he or she earned evading taxes. The money earned with all the taxes paid, or money earned by doing business or receiving wages, money inherited or received as a gift, no matter the source, does not need any amnesty. It is already clear. The initiative only applies to shadow money.
Large investors will not pay income tax and will receive privileges when paying import duties in Ukraine. The Verkhovna Rada adopted in the second reading the norms on state support for investors who want to implement projects in Ukraine with a cost of 20 million euros or more. The law proposes to provide temporarily tax incentives for companies that conclude a special investment agreement with Ukraine.
This is not a 15-year benefit, but a benefit that can be provided during the 15 years of this project. In this case, income tax is not more than 5 years. All the benefits amount to 30% of the volume of investment. This is the logic of the bill. A large investment of 20 million entails a benefit provided by the state in various forms. It's an absolutely normal position suggested by the president.
The sanctions of the Ukrainian government against the assets of MP Viktor Medvedchuk are in the attention of the Western press. The British Financial Times published a material on sanctions against the politician. According to the authors of the article, the political forces controlled by Medvedchuk and oligarch Igor Kolomoisky block reforms that could accelerate the receipt of multi-billion-dollar loans from the IMF, the United States and the European Union. According to the newspaper, last year these political forces influenced the decisions of the Constitutional Court of Ukraine, which threatened its anti-corruption bodies. He made the largest aircraft in the world fly. Alexander Halunenko, commander of the first crew of the Antonov 225 on Mriya, the Dream, celebrates his jubilee. Over his entire career, the pilot has set 263 world records, and now he's teaching a new generation of pilots. Our correspondents will tell you more about the life, achievements and plans of the prominent pilot.
75-year-old pilot Alexander Halunenko receives congratulations from friends and colleagues. We congratulate Alexander Halunenko. Hooray!
Ура! Ура! Ура!
The man was the first in the country to receive the title of the Hero of Ukraine for saving the Antonov 70 cargo plane from a crash. When the electronics of the aircraft failed, his decisions not only saved the crew but also protected the honor of the state aircraft industry. The main thing is that there was no panic. We clearly thought over all the actions. Well, here's the result, and it turned out that we still got out of the situation and landed the plane safely. World aviation records brought wide popularity to the test pilot. He set 110 of them in just one flight. So the name of Alexander Halunenko got into the Guinness Book of Records. At that time, he was the commander of the legendary An-225 crew. This was the first flight. The flight was without any comments. I sincerely said, in general, there was nothing, no abnormalities there. That is, there was nothing to report. This giant was built in 1988. Antonov An-225 is the first in the world in many aspects. It's almost as long as a football field or as long as 2 standard passenger Boeings. And the maximum amount of weight lifted is 250,000 kilograms. It was a bright impression. Any flight of the Mriya is really outstanding. Not because I piloted it, but because I see the reaction of people. People stood for half a day in order to approach the plane and take a photo. There is only one Mriya in the world, but there is a fuselage for the second liner ready at the Antonov plant. The Ukроборонпром State Defense Concern plans to finish building of the plane. We have a plan to complete the construction of the second Mriya, for which we are now looking for investors. Negotiations are underway, and we have prospects in these negotiations so that the second aircraft of a kind is completed in the future in cooperation with our foreign partners. Alexander Halunenko dreams of seeing the second Mriya take off. In the meantime, the man shares his experience with future pilots. He teaches the basics of flight safety at the State Flight Academy in Kropyvnytsky. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Mikita Havriluk, UATV News.
That was our final story this hour. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. More updates on our official website, YouTube and Facebook pages.